Amy Ziering, producer of The Invisible War. And when you went up on the stage, Amy, you talked precisely about this legislation put forward by Senator Gillibrand. Talk about its significance.
It's hugely significant. There's been 20 bills recently that have been passed in either the House or Senate that, and also drafted in both those places, that deal with issues of sexual assault in the military. This is the only bill that actually we feel will affect the military significantly enough to radically reduce these numbers, and that's why we're pushing behind it so fiercely.
Explain the origins of the Gillibrand bill. What exactly would it do?
It would take the adjudication of these sex crimes, of sexual assault crimes, outside the chain of command and put them in a military, independent body of military adjudicators that are not related, that wouldn't know any of the people involved, neither the perpetrator nor the assailant. And that's what we feel is sort of the Achilles heel of this issue and the real leverage point. Because what we have found in interviewing hundreds and hundreds of survivors and generals, et cetera, is that people don't feel comfortable reporting. They feel that they will not have any access to an impartial system of justice. So this bill will change that single-handedly, and we feel that once people feel safe reporting, you'll hear reports go up, then you can have prosecutions go up, and then we can actually see these crimes reduced.
And when you see the military responding to the reports of the sharp increase in sexual assaults by saying it's just a question of more people feeling the ability to come up forward and report it, what's your response to that?
Well, those numbers are interesting. I mean, the numbers are rising, but still the percentage of people reporting is 85 to 90% do not report. So what we're actually seeing is an increase in numbers without an increase in overall reporting. So it's interesting. There's it's unclear what this actually means, and that's why we're very fearful that this epidemic is continuing to grow unless we do something that'll actually reduce it.
Amy, the power of The Invisible War was the stories of the victims, the men and the women. Tell us one of those stories and what it would mean if they had this new avenue to report the crime.
Oh my gosh, I can't. I think almost every story was a case in which, I mean, Trina McDonald was assaulted by people that she had to report to the military police. The military police were assaulting her, and they were extremely close to everyone in her command chain. So she had nowhere to go and couldn't tell anyone. And 25% of the crimes committed are by people within the chain of command itself. So how can you report to someone who's assaulting you?
So what would you do then? How would it work under the new legislation?
Under the new legislation, there'd be an independent body that people knew they could go to, and it would not necessarily, it wouldn't go, and that body, we already have a military.
This would be an independent body within the military.
Yes, that already exists. We would just put these crimes over there, and that's what's so crazy making, is it's not this radical change. It's not taking outside entirely. It's just putting it in a different body that already exists within the military.
It exists for what?
It exists for, well, it exists for all the crimes that already are committed. The commander confers with that body. We're just asking the commander to be out of this loop. Does that make sense? And not have any kind of oversight of these crimes. So it would be much cleaner, and people would feel like, okay, actually, I could get a fair shake at this.
So where does the legislation stand now?
We have 47, or did you say 48, senators now who are in favor of the legislation. It would need a 51% majority, right, to pass. So we're closing that gap, and that's why but there's been talk that there would be a filibuster and they would want it to go to 60 votes. So that's the concern right now. I can't imagine that people would filibuster against the rights of people to have access to an impartial system of justice.
And even if it went through the Senate, it would still have to go through the House as well. Right?
Correct. But people said this could never happen, and look how far we've come. And we're confident that if it passes the Senate, we can also do the same push in the House. I mean, this is common sense, right? The military was against desegregation. It was against gays in the military. It was against women. And it always said that will affect good order and discipline. We absolutely can't go there. And look what happened in retrospect. They were happy. It's been a more positive change. We say the same thing. They don't need to be fearful of this change.
Let me turn to Senator John McCain, who's opposed the change. He said, quote, "I'm the only member of the United States Senate who is actually in command, okay? And I know what command authority is all about. So if you take it away from those commanders, you'll impair battle efficiency. And I respect Senator Gillibrand's views and her advocacy, but I do not believe that she has the background or experience on this issue." I do, said Senator McCain.
49 rapes a day, 0 prosecutions. How is that efficient? Who is it efficient for? I don't really understand the logic of that. We are not asking for all crimes to be taken outside the chain of command. Any crime having to do with mission readiness and mission execution still stays within the chain of command. That's 37 crimes which the commander is in charge of, which he should be in charge of. He needs to know what his troops are doing, that if it has anything to do with battle readiness, anything to do with command climate, those are still under his jurisdiction. We're just asking for certain crimes which he's neither trained nor qualified to prosecute to be taken out of his hands. We've talked to many commanders who've said, please, we don't want to be adjudicating these crimes. We're not qualified, we're not trained, we don't really understand them that well. We know too many of the people involved. Take this away from us so we can actually command more efficiently. We've heard the same thing from other commanders, is what I'd say to Congress Senator McCain. And I'd also say that it's not working. Like, if what he said to me was true, look, we can take care of it, we've done a good job, I'd be fine with it. I'd be happy. I want the military to do its job well. We just saw it's absolutely patently not true. These numbers are astronomical, and this system is flawed and broken, and there has to be this change.
You had almost all the women senators supporting this, but what about Senator McCaskill?
Senator McCaskill is not supporting this bill, but the positive thing is that 17 out of 20 women senators are. And we have 2 undecided. So there's only 1 woman senator who's not in favor of this change.
And why isn't she, Senator Claire McCaskill?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, it puzzles us, honestly. She has said that she would rather see it she's as skeptical of military prosecutors as she is of military commanders. And she would rather kind of keep the system as is. And we say to that, look, the system as is just not working. We got to look at trying something different.
If we can, I'd like to go to another clip from the Invisible War of the Marine barracks in Washington, D.C., just a mile from the Capitol.
When you report something, you better be prepared for the repercussions.
If a man gets accused of rape, it's a setup. The woman's lying.
I could choose to report it, but if they found that what I was saying wasn't to be truthful, then that I would be reduced in rank.
You could lose your rate, you could lose rank, you could lose your school if you file a false report. So do you want to file a report?
Even with the rape kit and everything, and my friend catching him raping me, they still don't believe me.
I reported it 2 different times to my squad leader. And he told me that there was nothing he can do about it because I didn't have any proof.
They actually did charge me with adultery. I wasn't married, he was.
They took me before my lieutenant commander. He says, "Do you think this is funny?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Is this all a joke to you?" I was like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You're the 3rd girl to report rape this week. Are you guys like all in cahoots? Do you think this is a game?"
That was a clip from the Invisible War. It wasn't about the Marine barracks in Washington, D.C., of the repercussions that women were felt once they attempted to report the assaults. Amy Ziering, the producer, your final comments?
I just encourage everyone to please encourage their senators to vote for the MJIA, which is Senator Gillibrand's bill. It's the only bill that will actually reduce these numbers of the epidemic of rape in our U.S. military, and it's just so important. Otherwise, we're just going to have the status quo back in place, and I'll be back here in a decade talking about this again, which I really don't want to be. And there's no reason to be afraid of this change. We can do it.